Japan's castles are a legacy of the samurai era. To maintain their splendor, they sometimes require intricate repairs, such as moving a heavy keep, replacing countless roof tiles, or rebuilding walls made of thousands of stones. To preserve these priceless historical and cultural treasures requires a huge investment. In April 2016, Kumamoto Castle suffered heavy earthquake damage. Restoration work began soon after. This time on Japanology Plus, we'll examine the art of restoring Japanese castles.
Hello and welcome to Japanology Plus. I'm Peter Barakan. Our theme for today, restoring castles, might seem a little bit recherché. In fact, Japan does have a large number of castles and restoration work is quite common. I'm in Hirosaki in Aomori Prefecture in the far north of Japan, and the castle here is actually undergoing extensive restoration work at the moment. On top of that stone wall behind me here, you would normally expect to see the main castle building, but it's vanished, and we'll tell you where it's gone in just a little while. Senda, who's an archaeologist specializing in castles, who was a guest on this program a couple of years ago. And you're also a member of the restoration committee for Hirosaki Castle, I know. Let's talk a little bit about what happened to the main castle keep here, which has disappeared from where it should be.
A missing keep does make you wonder, but it's in a safe place. Let me show you where the keep is now.
Okay.
Come this way. This is the castle keep.
Wow.
Less than a minute's walk away is the keep.
What is it doing here?
Actually, the keep normally stands on those stone walls over there. But those walls, the ones supporting the keep, were damaged. In order to repair the stone walls, the keep was lifted, set on rails, and moved 80 meters.
Wow. I mean, this is a fairly large structure, and I assume it's pretty heavy as well. How do they do that?
They lifted it hydraulically, intact, as it was,
Wow.
and then moved it.
The keep of Hirosaki Castle weighs about 400 tons. In June 2015, the project to move it began in earnest. The plan was to lift the keep from the walls in one piece and move it to a temporary foundation. It was important to avoid the cherry blossom trees, so the keep would have to change direction twice on its 80-meter trip. Even for the building movers who took on the project, all of them local experts, it was a serious challenge. No blueprints of the keep existed, and due to its age, many of its walls and columns had cracks. Moreover, the entire structure was leaning by about 30 centimeters. Without fixing that first, it might fall to pieces when moved. But Hirosaki Castle is an important cultural property. Risking damage was out of the question. In July 2015, materials begin arriving on site. First to be delivered are 16 long steel girders. The keep has 11 interior columns. They will be held firmly in place by the steel girders. Then the girders will be jacked up to lift the building. But the other 52 columns are encased within walls and cannot be lifted that way. So the plan is to use Z-shaped steel brackets like this to raise all the walls at the same time as all the girders. The work of installing the steel girders begins. Wooden bumpers prevent the girders from damaging the wood columns. At this point, a problem is discovered. There is not enough space under the walls for the brackets to be fully inserted. The plan must be changed.
I think we'll have to use a claw jack.
A claw jack can lift a wall even if it cannot be fully inserted underneath. But these ones operate independently from the jacks under the girders. There are 27 jacks fitted to lift the columns and 10 independent claw jacks. Everything must be controlled separately. If they are not kept perfectly in sync, the keep will break up. All the jacks are rigged for remote operation. On the left side of the control panel are the jacks for the columns. On the right, the ones for the walls. First, the leaning keep is leveled out. This task is carried out by coordinating with workers inside the structure.
Ready? Go!
The hydraulic pressure is gradually increased in the jacks for the walls and columns. The amount of vertical travel of each column is monitored with millimeter precision.
5 to go.
5 to go!
Okay.
To lift the keep while simultaneously leveling it out demands constant split-second decisions about which jacks to operate. The lean is corrected, and the keep successfully lifted off its foundation by 60 centimeters without causing any cracks in the walls or columns. Now it's time to move the keep. 18 dollies under the girders allow the keep to roll along a set of rails. It is moved in 30 centimeter increments. The direction changes are negotiated smoothly. Over a period of 2 months, the keep travels the 80 meters to its temporary foundation, where it is successfully fixed in place. The move of the 200-year-old castle keep is a success. Now, the next step of the restoration can commence, fixing the damaged stone walls.
So here we are, right beside one of the stone walls. Over there at the highest point is the foundation of the keep. The keep stood there. Now take a look at the stone wall in front of us here. I think you'll be able to see places where it needs repair. It's pretty clear.
I mean, that bit over there is quite flat and straight, but it's kind of bulging out here, isn't it?
The stone walls have deformed over time. Originally, this surface was flat, but now it has a bulge. I don't think that is due to any mistake in construction. It's probably a side effect of the original terrain. I think that's the most likely cause. Before this castle was constructed, there would have been channels in the ground, little dips or valleys. Groundwater would tend to gather in places like that. Over time, the water would make the soil here softer than in other locations. Where the soil is weak, the wall will bulge. I think that's what happened.
So in order to restore the wall to its original state, what kind of work has to be done?
First, we must confirm the condition of the wall. That must be assessed accurately. Then each stone will be numbered. That way, the original position of each stone can be tracked. Then the stones will be removed one by one.
Every single one?
Yes. Stones that are broken will not be reused. They will be replaced with new ones. Stones that are still usable will be returned to precisely their original locations to make the stone wall nice and flat again. That's what they'll do.
Have you any idea how long and how much money it's going to cost to finish this repair work?
Overall, the work is expected to take 7 to 8 years. And the estimated cost is somewhere around 2 billion yen.
In fact, another Japanese castle is currently undergoing restoration of its stone walls, Komine Castle in Fukushima. In the 2011 earthquake, its walls collapsed in 10 places. As of 2016, restoration is ongoing. About 7,000 stones fell in all. First, each one was photographed from various angles. The photos are compared to photos of the wall before the quake to determine where each stone was placed. Based on this data, a blueprint was made for placing the stones back to rebuild the wall. Artisans restack the designated stones, carefully adjusting each one's position to ensure they fit together properly. They can only put back 5 or 6 stones per day on average. Completion of the restoration work is projected for 2019 at a total cost of about 5 billion yen.
What other kinds of restoration projects are going on in Japan at the moment?
Every castle is different. When it comes to which keeps and watchtowers and gates are original structures and which are reconstructions. Numerous restorations and reconstructions are always going on. Japan's wooden architecture requires maintenance. With proper upkeep, structures can last centuries or even a millennium. Without that care, they become dilapidated. So this kind of repair work has been going on for centuries, in fact.
With the buildings, what kind of repair work is done?
Himeji Castle in Hyogo Prefecture is one of the most famous examples. Today, Himeji Castle looks absolutely beautiful. That's actually thanks to large-scale repairs in the mid-20th century. The huge main keep of the castle was entirely disassembled.
They completely took it apart.
Yes. Before the restoration work began, they discovered a major problem. They found that the main keep was leaning slightly, and further investigation showed that the most important of its supporting columns was damaged. So the column itself needed to be removed. A complete disassembly was required, and that's what they did.
When they take apart a building and then rebuild it, do they rebuild it exactly the way it was hundreds of years ago, or do they modernize in some instances?
Each structure that is part of a castle has its own historical. The goal is to accurately restore each to its original form. it should be returned to the way it looked before. But Japan is subject to major earthquakes. And even the best architecture of the samurai era doesn't measure up to today's seismic standards. It's a constant challenge. So, beneath the historical structure itself, a proper anti-seismic foundation is usually built during the restoration. A solid foundation helps to preserve a building like Himeji Castle. Then it can serve as a cultural and historical landmark that can be safely visited by everyone.
Himeji Castle, a designated national treasure and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Built 400 years ago, the so-called White Heron Castle reopened in 2015 after its first major repairs in 50 years. The castle's trademark pristine white appearance comes from traditionally plastered walls. The plaster is a mixture of lime, seaweed, and other natural ingredients. It has a creamy consistency. A major goal of the recent restoration was cleaning up the damaged exterior. Decades of weathering had caused the plaster to flake off from many of the castle's walls. In 2009, the keep was enclosed in scaffolding for repairs. It was a huge project that cost 2.4 billion yen. First came an exhaustive inspection of the keep's walls. Damage to the plaster was assessed by tapping it and listening to the sound. Damaged plaster was then stripped off. Underneath, deep decay was found in the thick walls of the keep's top floor. This affected even the wooden supporting lattices. So the walls of the top floor were removed entirely, including the lattices, and rebuilt. First, though, came a tough hurdle. The original lattices were made of slender, straight saplings of hard, durable woods like oak and cherry, materials no longer easy to obtain. It took 3 months to gather enough saplings. 700 were brought to Himeji Castle and used to build new supporting lattices for the keep's top floor. Over each lattice, clay mixed with straw was added. Then, finally, it was time to plaster. 6 coats were applied. From the start of construction, it took 6 years to complete the rebuilding of the top floor walls. This large-scale repair also included re-roofing the entire keep, with its roughly 75,000 roof tiles. Every single tile was removed and inspected. Ones found to be damaged were replaced. Then the tiles too were freshly plastered over. The plaster holds them in place, preventing them from blowing away in high winds. This massive project required 5 years and 15,000 man-days to complete.
Hi, I'm Matt Alt. I've always loved building Japanese model kits. And on today's episode...
Matt drops in at a Tokyo-based maker of plastic models. Of course, today, he's come to see their castle models.
Ah, this must be the display room. Yes! Look at all these really cool little airplanes and ships and stuff. Ah, and here are the castles. Well, hello there. These castles are so cool. How many varieties of these do you sell?
About 50 different models.
Is there a large demand for plastic models of castles in Japan?
Yes, they are popular with all ages, from small children to the elderly. They say that anyone who's ever built models has put together a castle at some point.
Matt is going to build a model of Himeji Castle.
here's the Himeji Castle kit. Let's take off the lid, see what we have inside. Instructions, can't forget those. And these are the sprues that the parts come on. This looks like the roof. And here, we have the base, the stone fortifications that support the castle. The kit even comes with this green powder that simulates grass and this green foam used to simulate shrubs and trees. So here we go.
First comes the painting. Grassy areas must not only be painted green, but also sprinkled with this powder made from sawdust to give texture.
Look at that.
The wall part is painted grey to make it look like stone.
Next up, I'm going to paint the roof. Now, one of the things about Himeji Castle is it has a really distinctive white roof. This plastic model, however, is molded in gray. So you have to kind of add the color yourself. See that?
Now it's time to detach the parts and assemble them.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. If I do say so myself. And there you have it. The central keep of the castle. Labor. Ta-da! Look at that! Whew!
3 hours later,
Check it out! Himeji Castle in miniature.
nice work, Matt. In April 2016, amid a series of major earthquakes, Kumamoto Castle was severely damaged. The keep lost its roof tiles. Portions of the stone walls collapsed. Valuable structures were wrecked. One watchtower was left in a very precarious condition. Along with 13 important cultural properties, the walls were damaged in 53 places. Repairs are expected to cost over 30 billion yen. Kumamoto Castle has faced the threat of destruction many times in its 400-year history. In the 1870s, a mystery fire burned down the keep and other structures. In 1889, an earthquake collapsed its stone walls and damaged many watchtowers and other buildings. The castle was not repaired, but left to fall into ruin. The keep was not rebuilt until 83 years after it burned down. The castle had been the symbol of Kumamoto for 4 centuries. Many local people wanted to see it restored, and they donated funds to the project. In 1960, their wishes were realized when reconstruction was completed. Ever since, the castle has remained the pride of Kumamoto. But in the recent disaster, the lighting of the castle was damaged. It used to look beautiful at night. The city was robbed of that popular local scene. The city government received a flood of requests asking for the castle to be lit up again.
Even though the castle is damaged, we have received many requests to restore the lighting. Our citizens are eager for Kumamoto Castle to be lit up again. They want it to serve as a shining beacon, a symbol of hope for the future of this community.
After being forced from their homes by the disaster, the many local people living in temporary housing finally had something to smile about 45 days after the quake. Soon thereafter, work on clearing the stones from the collapsed walls began in earnest as Kumamoto began its long journey to recovery.
When we first met 2 years ago, we went to see Kumamoto Castle. Since then, this April, there were those terrible earthquakes and the castle sustained really terrible damage. I presume you've been there since then.
Yes, I did go, and I was shocked at how bad the damage was.
Do you think it'll be possible to get something at least close to what it was?
It will be a huge undertaking. I do believe it's possible, but until the stone walls are rebuilt in a way that is stable and secure, the watchtowers and gates and other buildings that stand on top of them cannot be restored. And I think it will take a very long time to repair the walls. I think it may take even as long as 20 years. But there is another aspect to this. Repairs to the stone walls are required on a vast scale. What that means is that many stone masons will have a fresh chance to hone their skills as they work on repairs to Kumamoto Castle. And that's not all. It will be an opportunity for the next generation to learn those techniques. And then they will be able to repair other castle walls around Japan. That's what I hope.
So you're going to get a whole new generation of craftsmen. And of course, nobody wants these terrible earthquakes to happen. But as a result of all the damage, if these specialized skills get passed down to a new generation, then perhaps it wasn't all for nothing, or at least one would like to hope so.
Actually, the stone walls of Kumamoto Castle are considered by many to be the finest in all of Japan. That's how important they are. Today's stonemasons will be working on these 400-year-old masterpieces of stone wall construction. They'll be doing this work with their own hands. I think that restoring the walls to how they should be is a wonderful challenge.
Let's wish him all the best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next time, volcanoes. Awe-inspiring and destructive, volcanoes are found all over Japan. How have the Japanese come to terms with this force of nature?